Thank you so much. It's so amazing to be in the presence of Unity of Brooklyn. My heart is always so open and full when I am there, and I feel like I am right there in the building today, even though I'm coming to you from Sedona, Arizona. Blessings. My topic today is so be it. So be it. There are two ways to look at that phrase. One is at the end of prayer as an affirmative launch, so be it. And another way of looking at it is so be it, become it. And that's what my teachings have always been about, which is embodying the Christ consciousness. What does that mean? That means that this body is used for the glory, for the affirmation of the God presence that is within you. Now, I'd like to clarify something, that a spiritual being, one that is fully awake in the Christ consciousness, also knows what's going on in the world. So I am not oblivious to the tsunami of mental health issues, of fear-based information that is coming across our airways. I am not oblivious to the pandemic, to racial violence, to persecution that is going on throughout the world. So I want you to know I am not oblivious to this, that it is not something that I am unaware of and I only talk about this topic. What I always want to do is to understand and come from a place where most people are, who have been hit by this tsunami of fear that has been happening since I last saw you in 2019. My life's work is about preparing people for these times. And how do you prepare people? Well, we had a beautiful reading of Ephesians by Peter, and let me tell you about this love letter that was read from the Bible. This love letter, which was to the Ephesian people who were being persecuted, who were experiencing violence, who had a tsunami of mental health, physical health, spiritual health dumped on them, and they needed strength. They needed reminding. And whenever you need reminding, I would encourage you to read Ephesians or Colossians or Acts, any of those writings that Paul did. And Paul was writing from prison these love letters to people. So he was suffering himself, one would think, and he was writing these encouraging, uplifting, strength-based messages, which lets us know that he wasn't suffering like a regular person. He was in joy in his spirit, but his body was imprisoned. And that is a lesson that we need today. That even though you may feel bombarded by anxiety sometimes, I understand. But I want you to know that there is a place that you can go where there is no anxiety and no fear. And that is when we can go and listen to that still small voice that sounds like our own voice. And it reminds us that we're loved and that we're cared for. And so that's what Paul was trying to convey to the Ephesian people, who were just depleted. And so when I chose this verse in Ephesians 17, which the whole chapter is a wonderful love letter of encouragement, and not just encouragement, but power. He was infusing that power that he felt within himself to people that felt powerless. And so it says that let your heart be home to Christ, the Christ consciousness. And oftentimes people think that Jesus, his last name was Christ. That's not true. It wasn't Jesus Christ. It was Jesus the Christ. And so it can be Karmen the Christ, Tanya the Christ, Marilyn the Christ. When we know who we are and we allow that awareness of love, abundance, joy, grace, mercy to come within our heart, then we are the Christ consciousness. We're the same thinking, the same being that was in Jesus. So we become the same thing. And so that's what Paul was trying to let the Ephesians know. And he also put it this way: your roots will grow down into God's love and keep you strong. That's what we need when there's a tsunami of fear. We need our roots to be strong, and we need our feet to be firmly planted in God's love, because there are two energies in this world, one of fear and one of love. And when we're strongly planted in love, fear is not an option. Be strongly planted, he's telling the Ephesians. And you may have the power to understand, as all God's people should, how wide, how long, how high, how deep that love is. Wow. When we're coming from love, we see through the lens of love, and we see what's going on in the television. We see what's going on in certain ways, but we see it through the lens of love and understanding that we're not against flesh and blood people. This is about principalities. This is about the wrong instructions that were given by those in power to keep you in control. That's what racism is. That's what fear-based thinking is all about. Once I can get you to fear, I can control you. But if I'm strongly rooted in love, I am controlled by the spirit that is within me and the still small voice that gives me instruction, tells me where to go and what to do and what to say. That is strength, and that is power. That those in power, in corrupt ways, are very afraid of. That's what Paul wants to do, is gird up, have them have a very strong foundation of who they are. You are loved, and you are cared for. And when your roots are in the grounded space of God's love, you are strong and you are protected. He goes on, may you experience the love of the Christ consciousness though it is too great to understand fully. You don't really understand who you are. You have to use your imagination to go to the next level. And you have to say, am I strong enough to withstand a divorce? Yes. Are you strong enough to withstand a physical ailment that the doctors say is not a good prognosis? Yes. You are all of that. Are you able to love through the pain of whatever it is you're going through? Are you able to stand in your truth and say thank you when other people are complaining? Yes, you're that strong because what is within you shouts your glory, because what is in you should be glorified. Paul is trying to let them know God is love. You are loved. You are the light. You are the children of light. What a beautiful love letter. And don't we all need reminders that are as powerful as this? Then you will be made complete with all the fullness and the life and the power of God. Think about that sentence. He's saying, once you know who you are and you have that Christ awareness and you're seeing the world through the Christ lens, you will be full of God's power. I can be full of God's power in every moment that I choose to have that power and to recognize who I am. How exciting is that? That is what we need to be in these times. I am not oblivious to the darkness that arises, but I am confident in the power that is within me and that is also within you when you recognize who you are. When you recognize that you are all power. When you recognize that you are all love. When you recognize that this is grace. All I have to do is remember and be it. So these words can jump out on the page, but oftentimes they lie flat on the page, and we read a Bible verse and it doesn't sink into our marrow and open up those technological vortexes within ourselves. But today I want you to see that Paul from prison is letting all of us know that we have the fullness and the power of God within us. And once you know that, once you step into your power, once you can be it, there is no weapon, there is no person, there is nothing that can come against you, because there's nothing more powerful than God's power. And when we sink into fear and anxiety, we begin to forget who we are. We begin to focus on the thing outside of us that gives us worry and fear, rather than enjoying, being grateful, acknowledging the power that is inside. That is why I chose Ephesians. But oftentimes we may be in a family or with friends that have succumbed to fear and anxiety. And we want to know, what can we do? How do we relate? What is my role in this? And so I'd like to give you an example of what happened during this 2-year period that we've been apart from each other. And I've been knowing about the pandemic and also the George Floyd murder and all of the things that have been happening, the protests, to the point where we need an organization called Black Lives Matter. Let me tell you my experience as a mental health therapist, having clients come to me and say, "What's going on? What are we doing?" And really in a panic because their lives were turned upside down. They had a tsunami of fear. Not just COVID, but racial injustice and violence. And so I saw that seeping into my family because I have a son that is a dark complected, beautiful king in his 20s. And every time on social media and on the television, he would see black people getting persecuted. He saw protests. He went to a protest where police were doing gas bombs to disperse the peaceful crowd. And he'd never seen anything like this in his lifetime. He was born after the civil rights movement. And he was never really exposed to anything quite this scary to him. And so his anxiety increased. His depression increased. His self-image decreased. His self-esteem was under attack. We were there in the house. This was in 2020. And people were isolated, which was contributing to the tsunami of mental health crises. Suicides in the United States rose, especially among younger people. This was a crisis. Like Paul was writing to the Ephesians, this was a crisis where God's people can be attacked. And so I told my son, I said, what can we do? What can we do to counter this hate that is going on? What can we do with all of this energy that we have to counter the hate of the Nazis? And so my son and I came up with an idea. We would do a road trip. Now, some people weren't leaving their homes during this time. It was September 2020. We took precautions with COVID, but we needed to get out into the world and spread love instead of hate. We had a placard on the side of the car, a magnetic placard that said, "Love is all there is." And we made cards. Each one of us made cards. My son made cards to give to people on our road trip, to put on their windshield, to give at the restaurant, wherever we were. We were going to give out these cards, and they would say things like, "Love is all there is." Or, "We encourage you. We love you." Strangers. We were going to give our heart away because every time we turned on the TV or social media or talked to people, it was about this racial stuff, or it was about COVID attacking minorities more. It was a tsunami that was hitting home. And instead of staying inside, we wanted to take a road trip and deliver love personally We wanted to know that there were nice people out there, that we were nice people, that we were going to meet up with fantastic people. We were going to bless people along the way. So my son and I went to the national parks. We went to states like Utah, Idaho, New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Arizona, and then back to Nevada. And in that time, those weeks, we met beautiful people. We had conversations that were deep with wonderful spirits. We gave out cards of love to people all over this country. And as we drove down the road and people saw our sign, people would flash us the love sign and say, yeah! That's what God's people do. We stand rooted in love, and it makes us strong. So no matter what comes across, we're swaying with it. We're swaying with love. And as we were driving down that road, there were fires during that time. We would just be going where there were smoky fires. We were carrying our love. Nothing could stop us from loving. Nothing could stop us from our mission of sharing. That was very therapeutic for my son, who was depressed, but then was no longer depressed, who had anxiety, but then his anxiety dissipated because we were active participants in loving. And everybody along the way was so helpful in our journey of loving. The final thing that I'd like to share is a practice that you can do. It is a practice that reminds you of your power, and it also gets you into the vibration of love, which is higher than fear. And at those higher levels of vibration, love, compassion, joy, you are protected. And I want to give you a shield of protection, and it's called a gratitude practice. It's the 4 strands of gratitude. And I'd like to share them with you, and it's something that you can practice daily, and it's something that you can practice when you need a reminder. But most of all, it's most powerful when it becomes a regular part of your daily breath. So the first strand of gratitude is what everybody does, especially at Thanksgiving, and that's you're thankful for everything that you see. So most people will say, I'm grateful for the turkey, I'm grateful for the people in my life that are at this table. That's what most people do. Don't relegate it to once a year, but just remember to be thankful for everything that you can see. The other part of the first strand of gratitude is thankful for everything you can't see. I'm thankful for my safety. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my kidneys working. Those kinds of things. I'm grateful that I live in a loving world. You can always say that also. Thankful for what you can't see necessarily with your eyes, something that maybe is intangible. I'm grateful for the relationship with my son, that loving connection. The second strand of gratitude is being thankful and looking for things to be thankful for. I mean, you're going out for a walk in nature and you see a flower sticking up out of the concrete. You just are thankful for that flower sticking up out of the concrete. Thankful for the clouds that bring the rain. So you're seeing things and then you're not seeing the other things. And then the second one is you're actively looking for things to be grateful for throughout your day. The third strand of gratitude is you're thankful for your past. Now, some people will say, well, what do you mean thankful for my past? I grew up with an alcoholic father. Find the things to be grateful for about those experiences that are hard to accept. Once you begin to accept them into your heart, see the good that came from them, see the gratitude that you can share with them, then it opens you up. If you want to put it this way, it opens your chakras, your energy center, to experience more Christ consciousness. Be grateful for your past. No shame, no guilt. Be grateful for it. Bring it into your heart and out of your head with criticism, and embrace your past. I have done this in my own life. The biggest thing that I've ever done in my life, and it was grace, was that I forgave my father, who was an alcoholic, who was abusive, and I held on so much pain and just resentment to the point where I was blocking everything that I needed to release. So the third strand of gratitude is being grateful for your past, and that can be a process. Go on the journey to release more access to the divine. The fourth strand of gratitude I call faith and prayer, and let me tell you what that is. My prayers are not about begging for something or even asking for something. When I am full of the Christ consciousness and all the power of God, which is what Paul wrote in to Ephesians, that you have access to the whole full power of God. So my prayers are affirming what I am saying. I am putting it out there as a declaration. For example, when I say I am grateful for my son's perfect mental health, I said that before the trip when he was deep in depression. I affirmed it before I saw it. That's what faith is. And that's what prayer, affirmative prayer is. I'm affirming health when you have a diagnosis of cancer. I'm affirming health and wellness. I see the power. I am powerful. So my prayers go out as a power shield. And so I am affirming the new earth. I see things falling apart. I see things crumbling. That's what has to happen when we're building a new earth. So I affirm this new earth with Christ consciousness people that love people and build an earth where unity is what we created. So when you see vacant land, or when you see a dilapidated building, there are those of us who can imagine a beautiful building there, a wonderful house with a view of the mountains. And there are some that will just talk about the abandoned building as if that's all there is. And what I'm saying to you is, tap into the power of God, which uses your imagination. to build the new earth that you want. But first, you've got to be it. You've got to be the power. You've got to come from integrity when you don't like what someone's saying because they're lying on TV. Are you coming from integrity all the time? Are you coming from a space where you can see the good, the potential, not only in a building, but in a person? Oh, that's what unity calls for. Not everybody is going to change, but what can change is your view, your lens, stepping into your full Christedness with your posture, with your strength, with your very presence, stepping into the power of God. And that is the foundation of the new earth. Join me in it. That's what Paul wanted to tell the Ephesians. Be of good cheer, but step into your power. From that power space, you can accomplish what other people will see as impossible. But you are so possible. As I close, if you can just close your eyes for just a moment as we begin our blessing. As I step in to my full power, I am so encouraged and so grateful that I know that this energy within me is so beautiful, is so wide, so vast, that it can encompass the globe. That I am not limited by my body right here in this space. That everything that I am vibrating out, this joy, this love, can affect people on the other side of the globe. I know how this works. I know the power that is in me, that is in all of us. We have the power to change structures, power structures, dark energies, fear. Because love is more powerful than fear. So why wouldn't I be in joy, knowing that what I have, what we have, what God is here now. All I have to remember is to be it. And so it is. So be it.